right, it is Friday, October 28th. Fall is in the air, John. The leaves are here. The leaf people are out. The trees are popping. The temperature's got a little chill, little bite. This is Riggo weather. And
Actually, Todd.
here's Riggo.
I cut you off. I'm sorry. There was a pause.
You were so
there.
excited, though.
There was a pause there. I thought, well, we're going in early today. It's funny you bring that up. Because I'm coming over, and as soon as I stepped out of the car, because I got in the car's parked in the garage, and I go out through the kitchen into the car, so I'm not exposed to the weather. And I step out right here to come into the building, and I went, oh my gosh, things have changed. I said, this is hunting weather. That's what it is. It's funny. We talk about this quite a bit. Like we were talking about, several shows back about how in the springtime when you get that first little blast of warm air,
right,
you're starting to think, ooh, spring, summer, and then you're looking forward to warmer weather. And then, of course, it was back in September, I think, when there was just a little bit of, September was pretty warm, actually. There was a couple of weeks in there where it was up over 90. And, but you go, oh, yeah, here comes the cooler weather. Well, I think finally it may have moved in. I mean, I doubt. I remember years ago practicing out at the old park in late September and having the temperature, in the 90s, So,
yeah.
But I don't recall ever getting into October, and certainly not November. Maybe we'll get a day of 70-something, low 70s. But I think for the most part, I think this is, I think we just turned that corner and
well,
headed towards
hasn't
winter.
this been a weird year? Because it doesn't seem like we had much of a spring at all. And it doesn't seem like we've had much of a fall at all.
And it seems like that's the new norm, that it just goes from winter to summer back to winter.
Here's a taste of spring, about 2 weeks. Here's a taste of fall.
Exactly.
Because this is late for the leaves, isn't it? I mean, it's November.
It's funny because Coco now is old enough. In fact, she turned 18 last week, isn't that something?
Oh, my
18.
gosh.
I keep telling her, Coco, if you want to, you can run off and join the Marine Corps.
Yeah, how'd that go over?
I don't have to sign for it. She just laughed. Putting down deep, she's thinking, no, but I could probably get a fake ID somewhere. Not that you need to be 18 to get a fake ID. But I did tell her back in Kansas, back when I was growing up, she was 18. She'd go up to the log cabin and just buy herself all the beer she wanted to. Of course, it's 3-2, but it is what it is. Or the Twilight. There was the Twilight Zone, too. That was another bar in Seneca. Anyway, we're getting far afield here because we went from the weather to, what was it? My brain can't keep up anymore.
So the fall crispness in the air and
what about Christmas? I'll see that today when I go to my favorite park. Oh, crispness. Yeah,
crisp.
I thought you said Christmas.
No, we're already getting bombarded with the ads. It's coming,
Yeah, I'm saying that the store I go to, the big box store that I go to buy stuff for the house. They'll have, in fact, they had, and I ain't been there for 2 weeks, they had Christmas stuff out 2 weeks ago.
The guy out front ringing the bell.
Damn near in front of the pot, Salvation Army. Anyway, like you said, there's crispness in the air. Not Christmas, although some people would say there is. And it reminds me, that fact, and I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately, is my bones are starting to ache a little more than normal, but maybe I can get behind that. But I'm thinking, well, it ain't too long, and I might be heading out to Kansas to do a little hunting on my property.
Oh,
deer
no,
hunting.
the annual sojourn. Have you already, you're my goodness. That's usually right after Thanksgiving?
Yeah, this year it'll be exactly. It actually starts, Thanksgiving obviously is on a Thursday, and the season out there opens on the following Wednesday, so it'll be less than a week after Thanksgiving, or it'll be exactly a week after Thanksgiving.
So it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm 95% sure. You never know. Something could come up because we've been taking. That's where I was going to take this, which I'll get to in a second. That something could come up, and because Coco, is now a senior, and we are looking for a place for her to go to school. So you never know. There's a couple schools we have to visit. If Lisa Marie says, well, we're going to go at the beginning of December, I'm going to have to go, well, I guess I have to wait till next year. Or go, well, I can't. I can go back out there and hunt birds, but deer hunting is what I was going to do. But anyway, I've been thinking about, you said, am I really going for sure? And I'm going, well, my brain goes back and forth between, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm sleeping in the tent. It's about 18 degrees outside, and I'm thinking, do I have what it takes to get up and get out? And, get dressed in that cold weather and then, go out. And then I think of being in the stand and just sitting there in the dark, and the sun starts coming up, and then all of a sudden, Mother Nature wakes up. And it's pretty cool, I got to tell you. That to me, and actually just being out there by yourself alone with your thoughts, I don't know. It's almost like a reboot, if you will. It only happens once a year, but I get to do that. So, like I said, 95%.
Wasn't it last year? Wasn't it a bit warm?
Yeah,
It was extraordinarily warm. And was it 2 or 3 years ago?
The year before that, it was even warmer.
And then the year before that, you had like base camp Riggo with ice and snow.
Yeah, right. But it melted very quickly. But yeah, we had snow 2 years before that. I mean, that's the ideal. To me, the cold weather is part of warm weather and you're deer hunting. That's kind of stupid because then you get a deer down. Now you got to process it almost immediately because if it gets 50, the meat will start to spoil. So you pray for cold weather, but really what you really pray for is snow. And you get some snow there. And I remember the first year I deer hunted out there in 1997, and I bought that property in 1973, I think. And so I'd had it that long before I actually on my first deer hunt. And the first deer hunt I ever went on, the whole week it snowed. It snowed before I got there, and it snowed while I was there.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, I was sitting on my property there, and I didn't really, and I'm kind of, at that time, I was kind of a novice to deer hunting a little bit. But my property looked like I could have been in Colorado. Like I didn't recognize it, which made it even that much cooler, if you will. That you felt like, oh, I'm on some wild. I might be in Montana. I don't know, hunting elk. So yeah, that was that, and so that part of it is what kind of motivates me. And like I said, just to be out there. And maybe the biggest deterrent really ain't the weather; it's the drive. 20 hours.
Well, here's my recollection of this annual sojourn with you, and through the years, you spend an extraordinary amount of time prepping. You got
that's what it's all about.
Multiple accoutrements, old accoutrements, new accoutrements.
Yeah.
Man in his truck and his accoutrements. Mm-hmm. Then you drive and you don't turn on the radio, which is still kind of mind-blowing to me, and I think 99.9% of our audience out there that a man in his thoughts.
Out and back. Yeah, that'll take me into another time in my life where I had a lot of stuff going on. And it's nice to get back to there. That's why I'm going out.
Then you get set up. And you get set up out there. You get the camp going. You get the camp going. I think one time you locked your keys in your car.
Yeah, I did.
Then you check in. You check in a couple times. You said, nope, haven't seen a deer yet. Or you say, no, have you seen Chongo yet? Nope. And it's like, you and Billy are out drinking beer, aren't you? Yep.
No.
I'm thinking about coming home early. Girl, I miss the girls.
Yeah. You got a lot in just then, and you just checked off a bunch of boxes there. The part that you're talking about, though, is the success of the hunt is not missing a trick. It's like in bridge. I don't know how to play bridge, but where they take tricks
and
format, and you make a book, or isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you ever played bridge?
No.
Okay, so you don't know either. But in other words, the way to take every trick is that in anything you need, you had the forethought to bring it along. It isn't where you go, oh, damn, and I thought about bringing that, or oh, damn, I was going to bring that and I forgot. It's like you got to be able to have everything you need, even if it's like a pair of tweezers. You never know. I mean, it's the simplest stuff, and I pretty much am pretty successful when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yes, you are.
For the most
part,
optimizer. I don't, and like I say, that actually is what the whole hunt hinges on. And the other part is, like you said, I'm not so sure I'm really out there to kill a deer, Todd, because I've been watching a lot of Life Below Zero on whatever channel it is. And it's like Life Below Zero now has got a whole new cast, and it's mostly native in Alaska. And basically all they're showing is hunting and fishing. I've never seen anything like this. They're showing, the shot, they're showing them gutting the animals and all this stuff.
So they're getting a little more pornographic about it.
Yeah, and as I'm watching it, I'm going, ooh, that's going to be me.
I guess I could have just said graphic versus pornographic, but
yeah, that probably would have been better. But
I don't know.
I'm thinking of some people that could be pornographic, but in a different, not in a sexual
porn.
sense.
Right? It's hunting porn. It's fishing porn.
Well, there is hunting porn. And that's the guys that have. I'm serious. They have cameras out in the woods, and they sit around in their office watching deer walk around instead of working. They call that hunting porn. I'm pretty sure that's right. Anyway, I was talking about Coco, and we just took her to New Orleans last week, 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks ago. she's looking at a school down there, and so it was her older sister, and Lisa Marie and I, and really had a great trip. And I hadn't been in New Orleans since I think the late '80s or something. It had been years since I'd been down there, and it was really interesting. That's an interesting town. It's almost. You realize New Orleans been around since the 1600s? In other words, New Orleans was there before the colonies. I believe that's right.
Yeah.
And of course, it was a different. The French are the ones that came in exactly and took over New Orleans. And it's got that flavor to it. I mean, it's like they say. There's something going on there almost every day. Some kind of a celebration. We're there and we're getting ready to go to dinner on Sunday night or Saturday night. Doesn't really matter. Sunday night actually. And we step out of the hotel, and here comes a parade up St. Charles Street.
It was
a parade. It was a wedding parade. Yeah, exactly. The tuba, the whole deal. Yeah, trombones. It was,
Yeah, they love the street bands.
It was, but there was probably 40, 50 people in it. And they had motorcycle cops out ahead of them.
Yeah.
They had a permit. They were having a parade. It's like, if you want a parade, just go get yourself a permit. They're down there. It's like, we got you covered on this.
Well, with
That's pretty cool,
the local funerals down there,
yeah,
it's a parade.
Thing. That's it. You can't tell. I always used to get that mixed up, too, when I talked. I used to say, oh, yeah, I went to his funeral. And I went, oh, I mean his wedding. Meaning that, in a way, in my mind anyway, they're kind of interchangeable. And in New Orleans, they're the same way.
Yeah, they get after it.
Oh, you had somebody die, and you want a parade? No problem.
Celebration of life,
married?
baby.
Got a parade. We got you covered.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. So anyway, here's one of my talking points today. It won't take very long, but have you ever noticed when you fly, and when we landed in New Orleans, and actually on the way back into D.C., I think almost every flight, and I don't think it is carrier specific, but they always say, one of the flight attendants, all right, everybody put your seatbelts on, tray backs up to their full upright position, and we'll be landing soon. And then they land and they say, on behalf of, put in your airline, we'd like to welcome you to New Orleans. Okay? Now think about this for a second. I've always wondered, wait a second, you're on my flight. How can you be welcoming me someplace when you aren't there? You came down with me. What if the gates open up and one of your ticket people or agents walk on the plane
they
and say,
should
hey,
welcome you.
Welcome to New Orleans. I'm gonna go, okay. But if you're gonna welcome me on the plane, it's like I could have got up and said, hey everybody, welcome to New Orleans. I don't live here. I ain't been here in 40 years, bud. Well, I mean, I don't know how that works.
Maybe it was the pilot's first time there, too.
Well, I'm sure
right?
they fly in and out there all the time. But like I said, it's just kind of one of those odd things.
That's a deep Riggo abstract thought. You remember the comedian Stephen Wright?
That's what you get when you drive 20 hours and you don't turn on the radio. You're alone with your thoughts, and those are the kind of thoughts you have. Thank God I don't have aberrant thoughts. I don't think. I have a few of those. Okay, so I thought I'd bring that up. Now, there's one other thing, and we've discussed this a little bit when Queen Elizabeth passed away here about, a week and a half, or not a week and a half, month and a half or 2 months
Within
ago.
the last 2 months.
Yeah, it's been a while. I know there's a series on called The Offer. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Offer? No.
It's about how they made the movie The Godfather. It's all about the backstory of The Godfather.
I love that type of stuff.
It's a pretty lengthy series. I think there's probably 10 episodes.
Okay,
maybe.
wow.
And it was recommended to me by somebody who is in that business. Well, not the show business, but yeah, kind of. Yeah, I'd say he was in show business. But anyway, I watched it, and one of the main characters, an actor by the name of Miles Teller.
Yes.
You know who that is? He was the drummer in Whiplash, for people to remember. Well, recently he was introduced to royalty, to Prince William and Kate, right? Well, he offered to shake his hand. Well,
verboten.
Verboten, exactly. And I got to thinking about that. In other words, that's, like, would you please pass the jelly? Somebody's going to pass out when you do that. I think that's the most ridiculous thing. In other words, it created some form of embarrassment because you don't offer your hand. If they don't offer their hand, you keep your hands in your pockets, I guess. Don't you find that absurd?
I find it revolting.
Yeah,
Beyond
exactly.
absurd,
And
revolting.
that I mean, if you're a Brit even, and you know, and the English are great people, but if they, and you know, like I said, the lines, you know, the 10-mile line, I don't
John,
get
the notion of
something
royalty.
that,
The notion of royalty is so
Exactly.
outdated, and that you would bow down to
Why would-
another person just based on they were born into some bloodlines.
Yes.
It's
And then to keep carrying it on.
right. It's
I don't
done.
get it.
I mean, it's I don't either.
Is it where maybe all the cultures have to acknowledge the wishes of another culture, say the English, who want to perpetuate the royals and all that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would need a psychologist or an anthropologist or a sociologist or somebody to explain to me why would that be considered, you know, what do you call it, bad manners or something, where, you know, you're just being friendly to somebody who, I got to be honest with you folks, Miles Teller's got more going for him than you do.
Of course.
So if anything, it's like, don't you extend your hand unless he extends his.
I'd be high-fiving. Hey,
Yeah.
how you doing today?
Huh?
How you doing today? What's up? What's
I mean,
up, Prince?
I think it's just like,
It's-
I don't know. It's
I mean,
like,
it's-
to me, that the whole idea, and I didn't mean to cut you
No.
off there, but the whole idea, it basically goes back to what you originally said. Come on, people, it's like, you know, it's 2022 here, and that is, you've always liked to say, and the royalties jumped the shark here, I think.
Yes, it's
You
so.
and the Fonz.
I mean, look, hey, that's why the Fonz is cooler than the Prince. What are we doing?
Yeah, and he's more modern too. He's more up to date.
I
He's more
mean,
contemporary.
It's such a relic that it still exists in any form or fashion, and you know, throughout Europe and that part of the continent where it was all by royalty, right? But very few are left that have any power or anything. So it's
No, exactly. They have no power.
it's
They do
right.
nothing except live off the taxes of the people.
It's cartoonish.
They're parasites, if you want to look at them in a harsh light.
Yeah,
Or look at them through a different, oblique light, if you will.
Who would want to be in and around this? Bow down to another man just because he was born into something?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and you know what? I have to say this, though. There's something, and this is different, but at the same time, when you think about it, the office of President of the United States, they always talk, and that's another thing. Here's somebody that was elected by the, are we supposed to, just by the sheer, what do you call it, power of the
Office?
Electoral, well, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That all the people chose this person to be in that office. And there's where it differs for me. Because it's not a matter, the man is really kind of immaterial.
Right.
It's all about the office.
Right. Respect for the office and the
Respect for
country.
the office. So,
Yeah.
thank you. Cleared that up. But still, it doesn't translate to royals who have done nothing and really contribute nothing but pomp and pageantry, which maybe that's what it is. But that's kind of, and that's when, you know, with the way things are going today, with the, you know, the future of civilization, if you will, is, you know, and as things, what do you call it?
We continue to evolve, and
Exactly. With cultural evolution, you know, you got to acknowledge stuff like that and know that it existed. But at the same time, is that kind of something we still want to, you know, keep bringing it along with us, like a, you know, a suitcase or whatever? Going, I don't know. I think it's baggage, and just leave it where it belongs in the attic. That's my point.
100%.
And I think I would go out of my
silly.
way. I remember it was way back when Michelle Obama touched the Queen, put her hand on the back, and everybody went, oh. And I thought to myself, hey, folks, get over it.
Yeah.
You're not,
Yeah.
you know,
If
I don't
you were
get it.
playing that game,
Yeah, I mean, in
then
other
you
words,
got low self-esteem.
yeah, you must. And the other thing is, it's like you need a playbook. It's like the NFL rule book, if you will, which is very complicated. I tried to understand it once upon a time when I was doing stuff for the indoor
Coach, I don't want to
football.
be part of
arena
passing.
football. I started going through that, and I got to tell you what, Clarence Darrow would have stumbled over some of those rules. He went, wait a second, does this mean? Anyway, I lose myself. So there you go. That's it. That's me, and that was my presentation for this morning. Here's Johnny is over with.
All right. So I got a few tidbits, John, here that we'll have a little fun with on. So the World Series starts tonight.
I was getting ready to ask about that.
It finally
I thought it might have already started.
No, unfortunately, they had damn near a week off with the pennants clinching or whatever, and so they've had plenty of time to rest and prepare. So it does start tonight.
Do you realize? And I was talking to somebody last week about this because the playoff games were on, and I assumed based on the time of year that the World Series was on.
Right.
And now I believe there's going to be at least one game and maybe two in November.
Oh yeah,
Remember
it's trickled into November now.
And you could have early November, and I guess Philadelphia's in it, and who, the Rangers?
Houston Astros.
Houston Astros. I knew it was a Texas team.
Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
Bryce is in with Philly, man.
Can you believe he's been playing for over 10 years at 10
I know. Doesn't it seem like he was just in town and we were watching his games?
Yeah. And he's been up there, what, 3, 4, 5 years?
Yeah.
4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
Go figure.
Well,
anyway,
so it gets underway tonight, and we have talked about this gentleman numerous times on TJRS throughout the years, and the gentleman, his name is Jim McInvale, Mattress Mac out of Houston, who owns the big furniture store in Houston. He placed record amounts of bets.
Oh, yeah.
So
I was trying to figure out what his shtick was.
So, he's Mr. Houston, and he put in $10 million in future bets. So at the beginning of the season, he did like $2 million at one casino on the Astros to win the World Series. And then as they got closer, he is up to $10 million in future bets. And he stands to rent. If they win, if the Astros win, he will take in $72.6 million from 6 different sports books, a record from Mattress Mac.
Jim's got it going on. I mean, that's well, it's Houston. I mean, I guess he can't be a loose cannon, can he? And just
no, because he's good
bet
for
on the home team because he loves the home team.
Oh no, he spreads it around. His last big win. Because he was, when Kansas won the NCAA basketball title, he won $11.2 million. So, he bets on the Super Bowl, but if there's a local affiliation, then he goes even larger. So he's killing it as a businessman as well, because then he offers incentives to customers that if he wins, then they win, and if you spent $3,000 or $5,000, your furniture's free, and he's taking in record sales at his stores.
Ooh.
So he is. They said when he won 11.2 on Kansas, he had snapped a $25 million losing streak since Super Bowl 2021.
Well, see, it's not all peaches and cream, right? I mean, Big Jim makes a few mistakes.
Yeah, but can you imagine? I mean, that kind of money, obviously, for a guy like Kim is no big deal. He's good for.
Depends on what his net worth is ultimately.
Right.
Because the only thing I heard, because Kanye West has gone through some, or Ye.
I can't even keep up with him. He went from Yeezy to Ye to Yo to.
Yeah. So anyway, he's been dropped by a bunch of his commercial partners. Adidas being one that just happened earlier in the week. And then so somehow.
Oh, everybody's fled the Kanye ship. I mean, he went from 1.4 billion to 400 million in 24 hours.
I think it's like down to 150. I'm serious.
$1.50 or
150 million. He had $1 billion. $1.50. I mean,
that's
I
really
got more
hard.
money than Kanye? I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, in other words,
that'll be a lesson in business schools: how to blow $1 billion.
Exactly. So Big Jim, he could belly up himself if he could hit a rough patch there and keep trying to get down.
All right.
Which brings me to a thought. I like Big Jim's style. I have this. It's not really. It's a fantasy in a weird sort of way, but go big one time, right? Say 10 large, or maybe even what's $100,000 in gambling parlance. Do you have any idea?
Wow.
Because a yard is 1,000, right? Or 10, or 5 large. That's
5 large. Yes,
that's 5,000.
Yeah.
But there must be. But when you get into his kind of gambling,
well, he's a whale for sure.
He is. But I'm thinking there must be a term for when you're betting in the hundreds of thousands, not the tens of
millions,
or even the thousands.
Right. And think about that. He has to spread it out among sports books because they're like, oh no, you can't bet $5 million
because
here. They have a limit. Now he could also hedge his bet right now and probably take 20, 30 million off the table just by hedging his bet and cashing in and saying, and they will do
make
that.
money and not, in other words,
Right.
he's betting against himself?
Well, they don't want if you stand to reap all or nothing, let's call it, round it up to 75 million,
right,
versus he could sell out right now for maybe a fourth of this. There will be books out there to say, you know what? Some of the books that he dealt with.
They'll give him money not to
you know what,
ride.
this is fun. Now it's getting a little goofy. What do you think? What do you think? I give you about a fourth of what you could have won or a fifth. How do you feel about this?
Oh, okay. Settle out of court.
Yes.
Before you have to go to court.
Yes, absolutely.
So in other words, the books start getting nervous on stuff like
yes.
that.
They would say this is, I mean.
Hey, Jim, you want to have lunch next week? We'd like to talk to you about that $4 million bet or $10 million, $20 million bet.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so he's, he's a showman, and apparently his commercials.
Well, exactly.
They remind him of H. Ross Perot. Down. Can I finish? Can I finish?
He's really got a style there, and you're right. I mean, and you see this every so often in each town. In fact, it happens quite a bit, I'm guessing, because I'm thinking of. There used to be, in Topeka when I was growing up, there was a cafe there. It was a truck stop along Route 24, I believe it was, US 24. And it was Ira Price's Cafe. And Ira Price did his own commercials. And he was, this is Ira Price. And I think he had a cigar in his mouth. It was like, yeah, I don't want 1 million friends. I mean, I don't want $1 million. I just want 1 million friends. And I immediately said, you got 1 million friends, you're going to have $1 million, right? I mean, come on, Ira. Dumbass kid like me from Centralia can see through that one.
You remember a guy named Cal Worthington, the car dealer?
Oh, he's from L.A., right?
Yes, but I got introduced to him in Alaska because he was on the TV commercials up there with Cal Worthington, and he was one of these good old boy characters who was filthy rich.
And that's Big Jim. And like I'm saying, that's almost a whole... I want to say, I don't know if to call it an enclave, but there's that. I'm sure in all that you go to any market. I mean, you'd be in Bismarck, South Dakota. There's a Big Jim in Bismarck. You know what I'm saying? They're just somebody that wants to do their own advertising. Why am I going to pay somebody because it's my product and I know what it's all about? I get that.
There's some great local commercials. Maybe we'll do a bit on that one time.
Didn't he? One of those guys used to be on Johnny Carson.
It was Cal Worthington.
It was
Cal Worthington.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He come on with the big hat and
yeah.
You always wonder how much of that was real versus it was an act. Because some guys are like that.
Probably a combination.
There you go. Mm-hmm. All right, John. Earlier in the week, this particular photo has gone viral, and what this is, University of Kentucky and their annual blue-white inter-squad scrimmage in which they go to various parts of the state.
Basketball?
Yep, and which is religion there, as you know, like Kansas basketball.
Yeah, they do.
Kentucky and Kansas.
And nowadays, they call it, because on a certain day, in other words, there's a day when you can actually start your first official practice.
Right, that's usually Midnight Madness.
I was getting ready to say that's exactly what it's called.
Well,
I take it they do the same thing.
They absolutely do, but this was in Pikeville, Kentucky. It's near the borders of Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky. And this photo has gone viral because that is a coal miner who had to work that day, and he drove 30 minutes to take his 3-year-old son who hadn't seen the team play before, and he just drove straight to the game like that to take care of his son, to see the game. And then John Calipari, the head coach of Kentucky, saw this, and then he tweeted out, and he's like, my family's American dream started in Clarksburg, West Virginia, a coal mine. So this picture hits home.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy's just covered in the grime that is his work. And it's gone viral, and now Calipari is going to have to give them a VIP experience. And great story. A little heartwarming story here.
First thing that comes to mind, though, do you think that this gentleman there works for Santa Claus?
He's got the beard going,
because you
too.
can't burn coal, so the only thing you can do is give it to naughty kids, right?
Never thought of that. Another Riggo deep thought.
Yeah,
Another Riggo deep thought.
I'm already in my zone to go to Kansas.
Keep it rolling, baby. All right, so I'm going to call that was good dirt on the gentleman that from his job who was taking care of his family, looking out for his little boy.
Noble dirt.
Noble dirt. Now, this dirt This is Dateline. This is in a small village in Iran. And this also hit the airwaves because this gentleman, Amu Haji, who has been dubbed the world's dirtiest man, he died at the age of 94 this past Sunday. And I can't pronounce the name of his village, but he had not showered for around 67 years. And he claimed he did it because it feared it would bring him bad luck and make him sick. So the villagers have been concerned about him for years and forever. And there's
94.
94. And so they finally convinced him.
When was this picture taken? He doesn't look 94. Maybe the beard looks like it's 94. The beard doesn't even look real.
His skin is...
oh, it's unbelievable.
That's a Oil of Olay commercial or something.
Oh, yeah. He's like the poster boy for this is what you could look like if you don't use Oil of Olay. You got to figure, though, go back. How far do you have to go back before, where you couldn't really bathe? I mean, I can see... a shower might be tough, but a river's got to be around there someplace. You'd get in the river and wash off.
For some reason, he said he died months after being forced to have his first wash. Forced, because they said the villagers had taken to a bathroom to wash him just months before he passed away. He apparently had an aversion to soap and water. It's claimed he even hated the thought of bathing, that it really made him sick. Now, he also would not eat fresh fruit or drink, and lived off of rotten porcupine
pie,
and up to 5 liters a day of water that he drank from a rusty oil can. And rather than tobacco, he would smoke dried animal feces in a pipe. So Amu was super bad. So they literally, a team of doctors in the Tehran School of Public Health, they came out to check on this phenomenon because they had heard about him and just say, well, how can this be? And that he was in remarkably good health. They thought that they found no bacterial parasite infections.
Good God.
Apart from trichinosis, which comes from eating raw meat, he had no other symptoms. They just said he had an incredibly strong immune system.
Yeah, he had the DNA that he could deal with it. Pretty incredible.
Cause of death, took a shower.
Well, you know what? I'm going to be him if I make this trip to Kansas. Well, I won't go 67 years, but I'll go 6 or 7 days. I don't have a problem with it. Years ago, I was up in Alaska. I was in Kotzebue, and I was up there with a friend. We were up there hunting, and he was showering every morning. I went 10 straight days, came home.
Riggo a little ripe?
They say that, but no, I don't think I'm...
How'd Lisa Marie feel about this?
Not everybody, though it was way back before we were married. I mean, I was a fairly young guy. But I don't think everybody's DNA is different when it comes to that stuff.
That's true.
I'll never forget riding on a plane. And actually, I was up front back when I had the means to ride up front, or somebody was paying for me to ride up front.
Even
and there was
better.
a guy that was up front and me, the seat directly ahead of me. And I got to tell you, Todd, this guy smelled so bad. And he had, he was riding up front, right? So you got to figure that he wasn't cheap.
It's wafting
or
backwards.
Wasn't cheap, but something, there was some money there.
He had the means.
It made you angry. The stench that came off of this guy. And it was body odor like you cannot, it wasn't like feces. It was body odor. But it was so pungent. That it just made it almost curled your hair. It was so nasty. And literally, this guy was vile. His odor was vile. I can't believe the poor bastard sitting beside him. It would have been, to me, that's almost like, if, where do you go and say, you can't get on this plane,
right,
sir?
Pilots, and they have the ability and the rights to do that. Say, sorry, sir, if you're dressed super inappropriate.
Well,
today's inappropriate. But the smell, because you're infringing on the other passengers.
Exactly, and you're giving us a bad name for hauling you around. You go tighten it up. But then you have to think, and then you look at it the other way. Is it because he had some kind of a glandular problem, like his DNA produced
and he
odor?
Doesn't even notice it?
Well, he wouldn't. He'd have nasal fatigue. He's living with it every day. All right, there you go. Stinky, stinky. See you next week. Riggo out.